Bojack Horseman has been lauded as a show with brilliant writing and painfully realistic depictions of trauma, mental illness, toxic relationships, addiction, and general not so happy fun times. And due to this, the conversation surrounding the show always either ends up being some extensive analysis of some sort, or people saying how they can't watch the show because they are not in the right mental state for it. Maybe you're just overthinking it, because this is still a show about an anthropomorphic horse with a bad attitude, in more ways than none. It's not that deep. Let me preface this whole thing by saying I'm not in any way trying to reduce the heavy themes present in this show. If anything, I would always highlight it as its greatest asset because not only does it handle these topics perfectly, it handles these topics perfectly while being a bloody cartoon. The concept of adult animation is frequently reduced to comedy, ridiculous, off-kilter, and sometimes out of pocket or just disgusting humor used to drag an audience, since apparently, once you turn 18, you should have no interest in drawings that move and should only watch dumbass Netflix shows or cable like the rest of your three-legged counterparts. Some cartoons introduce gore into their animation because, hey, they just ripped out a man's spine through his mouth. This is definitely not for kids. If you need the presence of blood and violence to watch or prove to people why they should watch a cartoon in the first place, you're either 13 or a idiot. Animation is a medium that does well and has done well to tell brilliantly written stories and portray realistic themes that doesn't need to be comical entertainment for stoners or blood and guts for it to be good. But for the fact that Bojack Horseman got as big as it did as a show which most people didn't even identify as comedic, at the time when the animation is a medium, not a genre movement, wasn't as big as it is now, should tell you that there were a bunch of shits and giggles in that script. Anybody who has watched the show will tell you that the heaviness of it doesn't just slap you in the face in the first season. This isn't 13 Reasons Why. The heaviest thing that happens in the first season is Bojack's friend dying of cancer but still refusing to forgive him for abandoning him for his career. And up until that scene, and even after, so much is played off for jokes. Herb doesn't even initially act like he's beefing Bojack at all, which, while it gives room for jokes, is still an accurate depiction of someone's malice having brewed for a long time, enough for them to come to terms with it but still refuse to forgive the person who hurt them. And this scene sinks. It's the first scene of the show where not only the word fuck is used, which is a word that's said only once every season to show the severity of the scene, but it's also the first scene that makes you really realize, wow, this show is not just funny lines, creatively redone gags, and obscure Mr. Peanut Butter references. And you only really think that because every other episode was funny lines, creatively redone gags, and obscure Mr. Peanut Butter references. Now, an uncultured swine may ask, how is this show about a talking horse dating a talking cat, friends with a talking dog who is dating a human Vietnamese woman? Deep. That sounds like a hilarious fever dream. It is. Not a fever dream because those are mostly uncomfortable, but it's still very much hilarious. After the realization that the show is on a bit of the deep side, you think every other character is going to have one severe crisis or the other, but that's far from the truth. Yes, pretty much every character goes through their own personal conflict. Diane's neglect as a child and her feelings of wasted potential. Princess Carolyn and her yearning for motherhood and realizing that it's not all that she thought it was cracked up to be. Todd and his issues with his parental figures. And Mr. Peanut Butter and his Jake Gyllenhaal dating behavior. But even through all of that, they still made time to crack jokes and do comical bits ingrained within their character. Diane is still sardonic. Princess Carolyn still ignores her clients when it has nothing to do with business. Mr. Peanut Butter still says a lot of dumb bullshit, and Todd says even more dumb bullshit. The last two characters are a testament of how unserious this show can be when it's not just depression and alcoholism. This show could have been called Bojack Horseman and the Wacky Adventures of Todd, and that still would have been an accurate title because it's almost exactly what it is. And they all still get their happy ending. All of them except for Bojack, which is the way it's supposed to be because he was a horrible individual. And that's my thing, right? If the show is too heavy for you because you relate too personally to other characters, or because it's a bit alarming the things Bojack does and how his mistakes keep tumbling into each other, making an even bigger mess than before, or you just feel really bad for the victims of Bojack's actions, that's understandable. But if you feel uneasy because you relate to Bojack, bros, get some help. Bojack is not a character that is written to showcase how flawed we as people can be and how it's inherently okay to be a shite person. No, Bojack is simply just a shite person, and if you relate to him in any capacity, You know what they say about shoes unfitting. Cinderella it out. This show hits hard because it handles realistic issues in a realistic manner, not because it's depression porn. Take the Good Damages episode as an example. The feeling of pain and suffering having to mean something or produce something worthwhile in order for it to make sense to a person is a common issue people go through. Diane tells Princess Caroline that this is the reason why she has to write her book of essays. Another show would have prolonged this scene, added some overdramatic music, and answered Diane's question through some vague quotes or metaphor, but Princess Caroline simply admits that she does not know if all of Diane's trauma means something or if it's even supposed to, but she encourages her to write her detective novel because it could still do the job of bringing joy to girls like her. I feel like aside from Bojack and his nonsense, this show would only be too heavy for you if you haven't come to terms with your bullshit. Someone made a tweet about how they thought they didn't like Diane but realized that they only had negative feelings for her because she was a depiction of the person. Essentially, as high quality as the writing is on various topics that may hit too close to home, this is mostly a show about Spirit's ugly uncle who makes a bunch of poor choices that eventually muddy up his life. Aside from that, it's funny as hell. Everybody else is vibing, and then they're not, and then they are. So watch the show, for crying out loud, you're missing out. And before I end this video, I'd like to say that all you Diane haters are weird. That girl and Princess Caroline are the success stories of this show, and every single one of your reasons for dunking on her are trash. Thank you, alright, bless.
On a daily, I might just scuff a Mercedes. Is she a hoe or your lady? Depends on how long that she staying. She wants LSD, give her TLC. In this Bentley coupe, not an SIT. In this Bentley coupe, not an SIT. I'm getting toxic necessities. I'm showing all my amenity.